Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Guided Growth Podcast, a new and exciting venture into the world of education and parenting. Today we're delighted to introduce Gladys Cruz, a remarkable educator from the Auburn Adventist Academy who brings a unique blend of engineering expertise and a passion for teaching to the classroom. In this episode, we'll explore Gladys's journey from an engineering background to becoming an influential figure in education. We'll delve into how her experiences shape her teaching methods, her approach to different learning styles, and her insights on building meaningful relationships with students of different backgrounds. Join us as we uncover the layers of an educator's life and the impact they have on shaping young minds.
Hi, I want to welcome you all to our first episode of Guided Growth Podcast. It's a beautiful new venture that we're taking on, and what better person to have with us than Gladys Cruz, one of our teachers from the Academy, and we're going to get to know her today. And first of all, thank you for being part of this new project. I know it's something very different. I know some of the teachers we've talked to, they're like, what is this about? Like I'm in the classroom. I'm not in front of the cameras or in front of a mic. So I know you're a very relaxed person. We're just gonna chat today. And you know, this first season, it's a season to get to know our teachers, and we want to get to know who's in the classroom, and also like give tips and pointers to some of our parents, and not our parents, but parents in North America, parents around the world, whoever's listening to this, because who knows where this is going to end up. If you're listening to this, please let us know where you're listening from. You could be in Asia, Europe, Canada. I don't know where it's going to go, but we're excited to share a lot of this. So Gladys, tell me a little bit about you. How did you end up in a classroom?
Oh, well, I have been in a classroom as soon as my daughter started at school in kindergarten. I just started helping out first, doing recesses, and it just morphed into becoming a teacher, even though I'm not technically a teacher because I don't have my certification. Mm-hmm. Maybe that'll be the next step in my life when I grow up. Maybe I'll get that. But yeah, I've been working in the classroom for a while.
So if your degree's not in teacher, what is your degree on?
I studied engineering in Walla Walla University.
Oh.
That was my second love, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
My first love, which is something that I wish I would have remembered when I was talking earlier, was actually teaching. And I was telling our friend,
Vicky,
sorry, the name. I was telling her that my first love was actually teaching. I used to teach my Barbies and stuffed animals. They were my first students. Nice. And I enjoyed that very much. And then also I have a lot of family members that are in the education department. Mm-hmm. So I was always surrounded by teachers, and I was always going to their classrooms and their offices, and it was just what I loved. But life takes you in different directions, and it took me into engineering, which don't get me wrong, I enjoyed very much. So I passed all my classes.
Nice, bravo.
With some challenges, but yeah, my mind, my body, my soul just kind of kept telling me, you should be teaching. Oh, interesting enough. Yeah. Throughout school, I actually paid some of my bills by tutoring. So I was even doing that through college. Yeah. And I have never stopped doing that.
That's cool. Actually, before we continue, I want to give some context to the people that are listening, because you said earlier I was talking to someone else, which is good, because I want to share this fun fact with you. This podcast is actually a bilingual podcast. I mean, now you know because you were part of the Spanish recording, but to the listeners, this is a bilingual podcast. And we didn't want to just dub it. It was going to sound weird. So we wanted to get bilingual people to be part of it. So we have Vicky, who's our host in Spanish, and Gladys speaks Spanish. So you guys already had a conversation, and now we're getting to know you in English because we already got to know you in Spanish. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you have friends that speak Spanish and you think they're gonna find a lot of value in this, let them know about it because we also have these episodes in Spanish. So that is one of the goals that we want to have, and it's a core value of this podcast to be able to reach and be a resource to more people. So let's get back to Gladys. So engineering, what attracted you to engineering?
Math, and science.
Oh.
I love that subject.
Okay.
Always have, always will, still do, and I enjoy teaching it.
So how do you bring your engineering background and degree into the classroom?
It's all about engineering. It's all about solving problems, finding solutions, and that's what school is about. No matter the subject that you're learning, it's all about finding a solution to the problem. And I always say engineering, they don't necessarily teach you to be just an engineer, but they just teach you how to think and how you're going to tackle the issue you have in front of you.
Okay. So are you teaching like engineering classes, or what do you teach?
In school right now, I am teaching a pre-algebra.
Okay.
So all of your the precursor to your algebra, which is, this is my favorite thing to tell my students. This is what you're going to use for the rest of your life, no matter what subjects you learn, what career you do. You need to know this. This is important. It's the basis.
Yeah, the good base.
For the rest of your life and whatever business you end up at. So yeah, that's why you can tell I love math. And I substitute teach pretty much all the other subjects. They like to call me when there's a Spanish teacher that's not going to be able to be there because I can speak Spanish. Speaking Spanish, teaching Spanish is not the same thing. Right?
I agree. Yes. Yes.
But we do what we can.
Yes.
And I've also been involved in chemistry. I love chemistry. Always have. I thought I was actually going to be a chemical engineer at some point in my life. And I almost enrolled in chemical engineering. But I said, nah, we'll just do the engineering. Chemistry, math, all the classes.
So you substitute a lot of subjects, just math, science, any grade?
All the grades, 9 through 12 right now, but I have substituted K through 12 in the past.
Oh, wow.
Anything and everything. And
even
in English. Even in English, history, pretty much every subject.
Wow. So I guess getting more into the conversation of the classroom, since now that you mentioned you've K through 12, when it comes to teaching the little ones, is it more like, oh, we're just going to play and do games, and then the learning happens when you're older because the brains are more developed, or tell me more about, because you've seen it all.
It's funny that you asked that, because even teaching the little ones, you go about it in a different way and you want to make it fun. But that also applies to the students to this day in 12th grade, 9, 10, 11, 12. You just have to kind of switch it and not say that we're going to play a game. But, our brains learn in so many different ways. So you really do have to adjust to the age and the setting that you're teaching. But you still have to engage all of your 5 senses in order to teach. And so with the kids, it sounds more like singing lots of songs, drawing pictures and all that. And then when you get older, you're still drawing pictures because you're drawing graphs and tables and all that.
True, yeah.
But it just, slightly changes.
Interesting. So is there like I'm sure you see the different types of learning that happens, right? And at a younger age, you're still teaching, you mentioned, but is it more sensory teaching? What's the difference, between teaching a little one and a teenager?
Yes. When you are younger, it's more sensory. And some things are not fully developed in a younger brain. by the time you're older, you're more set in your ways of how you learn.
Oh, okay.
So when you're younger, you're still, finding that perfect combination of how the student learns best. When you're older, you as a student, as a grown student, you pretty much know what's the best way that works for you. And my challenge, I guess, as a teacher is finding that out. But first, we need to get to know each other.
Yeah.
We need to trust each other. And through that comes the learning about you and what's the best way for you. It's kind of tailoring it to each individual.
So it's not like I'm the teacher, here's how you're going to learn.
No. Which is why some students might find this boring, but that's why in a classroom, you sometimes verbally are saying something, you are making them write something, you are saying things, you are writing things, you are listening to things. The teacher, brings all the information in different ways.
Oh, okay.
And some students like one way, some students like the other way, but you want to catch all of the learning styles. And that's how you do it. You just have to present it in different ways. And then when you work one-on-one, which thankfully that's what I love to do and what I do a lot of the times in my resource classes. That's one of the classes that I have. It's called Resource Like a Study Hall. I have the wonderful opportunity to work a little bit more one-on-one with those students and their learning styles.
So in the classroom, you've kind of learned their learning styles, and then on that 101, or even if you were to do like tutoring, right?
Absolutely.
Like you already know, like, okay, I know this student learns this way and I can help them better. And that's why tutoring works.
Yep.
Interesting. You're definitely putting your science brain in the classroom. Sounds like it. It's not just teaching the science, or the math, but you're really analytical in the classroom. I can tell, and I'm sure you're not the only teacher that uses that tactic. So it's I think it's, and you mentioned the relationships with the students. It's not. Sounds like it's not just if you want to learn their learning ways, you got to form a relationship, which is part of it.
Absolutely.
How does this unfold in the classroom? How do you work on that?
It's one of my favorite things to do.
Really?
I want the students to get to know me because when you know a person, you start trusting in them. You understand who they are, how they work, and their, like I said, their learning habits, and you are able to draw from that relationship. I mean, us getting to know each other right now, the more you get to know me, the more you're going to trust me because you know how I am, and the deeper we can get into this friendship, relationship, or everything. It's the same thing translated in the classroom. The more I get to know the students, the more they get to know me, the better we can work.
I wish I had teachers like you. I think sometimes we can look back, and I remember, I think you brought this up in your previous conversation. Part of my schooling was also in a foreign country. And maybe the methods were different, or even here years ago, the methods of teaching were different. There was no real relationship, maybe. And I love this relationship building because it really helps the student thrive in their teaching. And I think it helps for listeners to listen to this from a teacher perspective, because I don't work in a school, so I don't know what's happening in a classroom or... I have a baby, but the day I take him to the classroom, I'm probably not going to know what's really happening those 8 hours of the day. But knowing teachers like you are building those relationships to really get to know their learning ways, I think that's really powerful to get to know the teacher. And let's touch on a little bit of your background, because I know you mentioned, your upbringing, how that influences your teaching. Share a little bit of that with us.
Absolutely. So because I grew up in Puerto Rico. That's,
okay.
the country that I grew up in. And I say grew up. I don't know if you noticed that. I didn't say I was born and raised there.
Oh.
I grew up there.
I didn't catch that.
I was raised there. I was born in the U.S. in Philadelphia, actually.
Okay.
My parents were there,
Okay,
when I was
Coast?
born.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're both Puerto Rican, so I grew up in Puerto Rico. We said, no, let's move back home where there's family, and everybody was there, grandparents, cousins, everything. Wonderful upbringing in that way. So because of that, and I grew up also in a small town, it's a poor country, poor town, socioeconomic, not the best. And I also went to a public school.
Okay.
So all of those things are challenging. And when I came to the United States, I had to learn the language. And that even the way that things were taught was different. Even the style of teaching, everything was different. So that is something that I use as an advantage for and with my students when I am trying to teach them, because I understand. I went through that. I understand what it is to not know what the teacher is talking about. I understand what it is not to understand how they are conveying the information. So all of those things, and the engineering background of trying to solve the problems.
Yeah, problem solving.
All of those things just help me understand what the student is going through, and also things at home, coming from poverty and disadvantage. All of those things, I put them into use in the classroom, and I'm able to understand. And I talk about this all the time to my students. I say, I understand what you're going through. And, or I go into, let me tell you a little bit about me, because it's, the more they get to know you, the more they know, oh, she does understand what I'm going through. She's not just saying that. So the more that they get to know you like that, those barriers start breaking down, and then I'm able to share the knowledge in the best way possible.
And I think the school has a very diverse crowd.
Oh,
we are,
yes.
we are located in Seattle, one of the most diverse cities here in the U.S. So you get to see children from all walks of life, and I think that's beautiful that you get to your background really connects with them, and you can empathize with them in every aspect. Have you ever taught ESL classes or anything like that? Yeah.
Actually, I have. So it's really fun, because I'm able to connect with them that way, because I was an ESL student at some point. Yeah. And the same way with my Latino students, I connect with them as well.
The culture connects.
Because of the culture and the language. And with my very sciencey, mathy students, because it's just so fun to find things that we have in common. And there are just so many, many things that we have in common that we don't know about each other until we talk about it, and we form that friendship and that relationship. And it's just more fun that way.
Is it hard as a substitute teacher? A teacher has their classroom and they have a whole year to get to know the students. I'm sure the week 1, week 2 is hard for a team. I bet a substitute teacher is even harder, because you're there maybe for 1 day, 2 days. So how do you work with that barrier?
Yes, it is different. It is a challenge. But for me, it was kind of fun to start like that, because I started being just a substitute teacher last school year here in Auburn, Adventist Academy. And I got to know the staff, because it's also about relationship with your staff too. It's wonderful. Yeah. So I got to know the staff. I got to know some of the students. They started seeing me more and more often in different classes. Like, oh, she's here today. Oh, she's my Spanish teacher today. Oh, she's my math. They start seeing you, that you're a constant in their lives. And they don't just see us like, who's our substitute today? No, I don't want that. They start seeing you more often. So I started like that. And then when I came this year as a almost full-time employee, I'm still part-time, but almost full-time employee, and they see you every day in different classes more and more, it's a wonderful thing. We're building that friendship at the beginning a little bit, like, I'm not so sure about you, but you see that progression as to where you were and where you're at now. So I can't complain. It's been really fun.
That's cool. And I'm sure you get a chance to connect with them. Do you connect with them beyond the school as well, like in the community or something?
Yes. Actually, I do. Some of the students actually go to the church, or some of the students, we see each other when there are extracurricular activities during their games, soccer game and basketball game or whatever. So it's always fun to connect with them when they see you come. It's like, oh, Mrs. Cruz is here on my soccer game. Yay. The kids start to trust you. They start to, dare I say, love you in that way. It's like, yeah, she's here supporting me. They see that you support them, that you care about them.
Okay.
So it's all about that. It's about
the support.
I care about you, and this is why I ask this of you.
Interesting. And you said you've seen some of the students at your church. I don't think I ever saw one of my teachers at church. What is that relationship like? It's
great. It is fun because they see you at church slightly differently than them seeing you at school. At school, you're their teacher. There's a certain respect and certain protocol that they should follow. But at church, they get to come and give you a big old hug and just talk to you about your kids and your spouse, because they know who your spouse is and they know who your kids are. And we sing together and praise team, etc. And but the kids are wonderful, and they know the difference.
Yeah.
They treat me slightly differently, but they have that connection. It's like, you're from my church. You're my friend. It's lovely.
That's cute. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it just elevates that relationship to a whole other level.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not just teacher-student, but it's also a friend in a way, right? Because they know your family and part of the family, and I'm sure you see them as like your children.
Yes.
In a way, I feel like that's a common theme teachers always feel like. I think we're wrapping up. And any stories you want to share with us, that a story that's happened in the classroom that you've taken with you home or to life, that you can think back and that you're like, that story in the classroom just impacted your life?
I guess previously when Vicky was asking me that question, I just kind of froze up. It's like, oh no, what do I say? But the more I think about it, I do remember this one story where I was sharing a little bit more about myself and about maybe a struggle that I was having, and how the kids see you as not just the teacher, but they saw you as, oh, you're a human being. Oh. You have feelings. You go through struggles as well. You're not always put together. You don't have all your stuff and your ducks in a row. And it's okay for them to see that vulnerability in you. They can relate to that, and you can connect with them that way. And afterwards, the kids coming up to me and just giving me big hugs and saying, I get that. And I'm sorry you went through that or whatever. It's a marvelous thing to be able to connect with kids and deeper.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah.
So
wow. That is powerful. And one last one as we wrap up.
Sure.
Can you give, to our listeners, be parents or teenagers, a tip from a teacher? Something you want people out there to know, because again, we're not in the classrooms. I'm not, even as a parent, I'm not going to be in the classroom. A tip that you have for parents or students?
One of the things I always say to my kids at home, at church, and everywhere, and it's related to education, I always tell them, guys, knowledge is power. And that is a superpower that no one can take away from you. Wow. It is, for me, super important. I try to convey that to the students. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, what vocation education degree, no matter what job you have, knowledge. It's all about knowledge. So never stop trying to learn.
Yeah, and never take it for granted.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Awesome.
no one can take it.
Yeah. Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, it's our first episode. Yay. And thank you, Gladys, for being with us. It was an honor to be here with you, to get to know you more, because I've seen you around the school. Maybe I've said hi, but now I can definitely give you a hug next time I see you, Gladys. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And stay tuned for our episode 2 that will be coming out in a couple of days.
We hope you've gained valuable insights into the diverse world of education and the impactful role of teachers. Gladys's journey from engineering to the classroom reminds us of the unique paths that lead to teaching and the profound influence educators have on shaping young minds. Thank you for joining us on this inaugural episode of Guided Growth Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll continue our exploration into the lives of educators. We'll be meeting Atuanya Dubreuil, whose journey from aspiring writer to dedicated teacher offers another fascinating perspective on the challenges and rewards of the teaching profession.